welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thank you so much, as always, for making your way here, checking the series out. You know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists. I'm so honored today to be talking with Will Sargent of Echo and the Bunnymen, one of my all-time favorite bands. Hello, Will.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We're talking today about not just the music, but you've put out your autobiography called Bunnyman. This is part 1 of the whole story. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm in my head. I'm planning on doing 3, and I've sort of the beginning is growing up as a kid, getting into music, and then starting the band. And then the first year when we started, there was only 3 of us. And we had a drum machine, so I've documented that because it never gets talked about, you know. Mm-hmm. And then the next one will be like Crocodiles Heaven Up Here and touring the world and, you know, all that stuff. Then the one after that will be Porcupine, Ocean Rain. That's the plan anyway, so we'll see where it goes. You know, I've started the second the second volume, but it's you never know what little rabbit holes I'm going to go down, you know.
Yeah, well, it's such an interesting story, and I mean, I honestly, I devoured it, I think, over just a couple of days. And plus, I mean, this is the story that's never been told. For fans who have been around a long time, I guess that's a little surprising. Was there any reason why now was the time for you for I guess the official story of the band for the first time?
What it was, I started doing some of our early records got re-released by a label, and they did them in really nice. I'm not on about the ones that have just come out now. I'm on about, you know, a couple of years ago it was, and they brought them out limited editions in these really nice kind of card covers, and they wanted liner notes, you know. And they asked me would I do the liner notes. So I did the first 4 album liner notes, and I really enjoyed doing it. And it was kind of like I realized I could do it. Like I didn't know I could do this sort of stuff, you know. It's like I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? So, and I, you know, didn't do anything good in English at school or anything, you know. But I think it's just because the way I write, it's kind of like, it's almost like I'm just talking, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, and the story's already written, isn't it? You know, it's already there in your head. So it's not like you've got to make something up and sort of get some sort of plot going. It's just a line. It's like Lord of the Rings, from A to B. You know what I mean? You've got to get over there, and you started here.
Well, it's you do paint those pictures really, really well. I mean, we start this book, of course, at the beginning of your childhood, and you know, and where you grew up, and you know, we hear about the stories a lot, especially. I don't know if I want to say your generation, but folks of your generation, your parents' generation, and you hear about. It seems like the war was ever present, even if you weren't alive.
Yeah,
and it's always. Go on. Yeah,
I was born like 1958. It was only, you know, 13 years after the war. Now, 13 years is nothing. You know, you might think what was going on 13 years ago,
right?
Like you know, like remember the millennium? That was like 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's crazy, you know. So 13 years is nothing, you know. So everybody, all the adults, they would all talk about the war. They'd all mention things that happened. It was a big deal, you know.
Yeah, and it
was a big
seems
deal.
Like, yeah, it definitely gave you, I guess, your palette to paint by. I mean, was that one of the? It seems obvious for me to ask it, but how big an influence was that on the art that you came to create?
I think the Cold War had an influence, you know, the war that came after the war, if you like, you know, the sort of, with the Russians and all that stuff, the Soviets. So, like, that always fascinated me, and I love spy stories, and, you know, not so much the James Bond side of things, but more the John le Carre, you know, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the kind of like real, gritty, grubby, horrible side of spying, you know, where they're like, shit on the friends, you know what I mean, if it advances what they want to do, that sort of thing. Not like jumping around in fancy cars with ejector seats. That's nonsense. It was a lot more devious than that. And that side of things, I really like. I was fascinated by that. And the sort of, the communist stuff and all that. The kind of two different systems battling each other.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it fascinating. And so that was like an influence on me. And I think on a lot of bands then in the 80s, it was, there was like this threat of nuclear war that was there. It wasn't some joke, it was actually there,
Right.
So, yeah, so I think it did influence that sort of darkness within.
I mean, that's when we talk about, I'll just say broadly, post-punk, the juxtaposition, it makes a lot of sense. Like, it's not that I hadn't realized that, but in the exact way that you're talking about, especially the type of spy movies and novels that you're talking about, because you do have that darkness and that danceability at the same time. And
we didn't want to go down the obvious route all the time and the kind of poppy, just too cheesy, all that stuff.
Yeah. So. But yet the other side of that, I mean, especially, if you grew up in the 60s, the poppiness, the Beatles were everywhere. And it's funny that there's a part in your book where you decide you wanted to apologize for talking about the Beatles as much as you have. But I feel like that's like, if you're in the 60s, that's such a big part of the story anyway.
And in Liverpool.
Right. Well, obviously.
You can't move for the, everything in town. There's statues and little shopping centres and all kinds of stuff. Beatles Museum, the Beatles tour, the Beatles taxi tour. You can go around John Lennon's house and all this sort of stuff. It's just everywhere, so you can't escape it. But in the 80s, it was ignored. That's the mad thing. Like in the 80s, the council, the sort of local council of Liverpool ignored it. Only knocked the cavern down. They just destroyed it and then built a fake one. So what's the point of that? They already had a good one. America wouldn't knock Graceland down, would they? And then build a fake one across the other side of the road or something. We made a mistake. They just wouldn't do it. They know the legacy, and like popular culture is important because it's what this last century was all about.
Absolutely, yeah. Did you have you watched the documentary yet? The Get Back film?
No, I haven't seen it. No.
Yeah, I wonder, like, as I wonder about actual musicians, like long-term musicians. If you would sit through 8-9 hours of watching 4 people write a record, it's very different, I suspect.
Not giving up to go and see it. I'm not that bothered. Like I'll watch a bit of it. If somebody gives me a free DVD of it or something, I might have a look. But I'm not that really. I'd rather watch. There was a good documentary on the telly the night about Andy Warhol. I'd rather watch that.
Yeah. Well, the back to the book. You do this really interesting thing where every chapter is matched up with a song. It's not always a song that you definitely that actually make an appearance in the chapter. And I was kind of curious in your process in that. I was really excited to see things like Telstar on there, just stuff that doesn't really get talked about too much. But what was the significance of the songs to the chapters?
Well, it was just what was going on in the background. Like Telstar was like, when was it, 60 something, or really early 60s or something like that. Like the first one is Tequila, isn't it, by the Champs, 1958. That's like when I was born, so I wasn't aware of it then. Like I love it now, and I love Telstar, and I love the whole story of Telstar and Joe Meek producing it and everything, and all them weird sounds at the beginning, which is like an echoplex all feeding back on itself, And that was a lot of sort of, a sort of almost like a Cold War thing, because that was it was a communication satellite sent up by the Americans, and before that we had Sputnik. And that really put the cat amongst the pigeons, it's just history that's going on that, in the background, and music was part of that history. Yeah. That's what I liked, I like sort of giving it like a sort of grounding of what was going on in the background. You know, like later on in the 80s, there was like loads of, in the 70s, there was loads of strikes and industrial action and stuff. And I remember the lights going off for 4 hours a night or whatever, because there was no coal to power the power stations, this sort of thing. It was quite exciting. Everybody was like, sitting around playing board games with candles.
It's really interesting when that stuff happens today, because I think people are less adept to handle those situations.
Civilization is a thin fabric that can easily be ripped.
Yeah. Well, hearing about your first shows, I mean, the way you, again, I'll say, paint those pictures, seeing Slade and Status Quo, and the way you talk about the buildup of a show. Like, the one thing I like about you, and I also say, and you get this a lot with biographies, not all the time though, is when you realize how much of a fan the author is. Like, hearing the way you talk about the music, as a fan, and wondering, when that was finally you up on those stages, were you still thinking back to those moments, like those people down there sing me the same way that I, saw Zeppelin?
Yeah, in a way, but you kind of, I feel embarrassed by it, really. It's not something I wear with that much pride, if you like. I'm not like, I always feel a bit awkward about the whole thing. It's kind of weird. Like you say, I'm a music fan, and always will be. Bought an album today. I buy records all the time. Yeah, it is weird. It is a weird thing that you're looking up to them, and I know how you build it all up inside as well. You think these people are superhuman, and they're not. They're not superhuman. I'm not superhuman, and neither is Jimmy Page. Do you know what I mean? But to me, when I was 14, it was like a god.
Yeah, there was like the way your scene became represented once it became a scene, and that's usually a hindsight thing. It's rarely ever in the present. But when you talk about coming up, Teardrop, and just all the bands that you mentioned, that it was coming down to that post-punk scene at the time. But these were just, as you say, these were just your friends. These were just people, regular people. But in the eyes of anyone that wasn't around, that they become mythologized, and that's got to be such a weird.
I know, and a lot of it is mythologized by the people that are actually in them bands. They try and make out that they're like something other than they're not. And I don't. I'm just a geezer, and just happen to be like a fell in this situation because I've got an imagination. That's the only thing. That's my only tool, really. And I can hear like the Residents, and some people get like, oh God, I can't stand the Residents, whatever. But I can hear it in a different way. I don't know. It's I like discordant stuff as well, and things like that, which other people don't find that palatable. But I don't know. It's a weird thing. I don't really want to understand it. I can't understand how, because I think if I start understanding it, it might kill it.
Yeah, right.
I could pick up a guitar now and I'll play you 5 different things that I've never played before, and 3 of them might be okay. You know what I mean? It might be like good little tunes, But I'm not sitting here now thinking, oh, what about if I do this and do that? It just sort of falls out the end of my fingers. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it.
Yeah. I was talking with was with Les Claypool from Primus, and it was one of those moments. Yeah, I was just trying to get into the idea of songwriting, and he just said it flat out. He goes, it's just jamming most of the time. Like, it's just so. I don't want to say meaningless, but in a sense, what you're doing in that moment is meaningless, and then what it comes to represent later is one of the most interesting human weird things ever. Like, when I hear the opening riff to The Killing Moon, it does something, Right. I mean, it does something that, and it has for 25 years for myself.
And that was an accident.
Yeah.
That was just an accident.
Just
That
the
was
riff
just
itself.
something. You mean the little guitar thing?
Mm-hmm.
That was just something that I did when we were tuning up. And it just so happened that the tape was rolling and it got recorded. And then, I was just checking my guitar was okay. I never thought, oh, this is going to be the intro. And we went out for a curry. And when we came back, the producer, this bloke called David Lord, he spotted this little thing and he put it onto a 1/4-inch tape, bounced it across, and then bounced it back onto the 24 track as an intro. So I didn't even consciously think. So this is what I mean. It's like, it's chance, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And things lead you to chance as well, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's a cool little thing, and I don't know where it came from. I know it wasn't intended as an intro, but it works brilliantly. And the trouble is, once I'd done it, I didn't know how I'd done it. Because he said, I found this little thing, and it's like, oh God, how the hell have I done that? Like, I've got to try and work it out then. And I still don't know whether I'm doing it the right way when I do it live now of what I did,
Uh-huh.
I was just checking the guitar was sounding okay. It was in tune or whatever, up and down the neck.
It's like the Hard Day's Night thing that people have been trying to figure out for decades too. It's just those weirdo moments.
Yeah.
Let's as you do go through that, as you said, the aggro fueled time of the 70s and how that sort of built into punk and then into post-punk. You talk about, was there a sense of how those first generations punk looked at you all as the next generation? Because you obviously get the point of view from you looking back at them, but how was it seeing that you all were taking that sound to the next spot?
I at the time, I didn't think, we sort of got tired of that kind of like, kind of ranga, kind of like angry, stuff that it was just became a bit boring. Like, to me, the more interesting stuff was the likes of Talking Heads and, Perubu and Television and all that. A lot of the American stuff. And the Saints from Australia, I really like them. And Wire over in England, and who else? I don't know, alternative TV, people like this, stuff that was doing. They were punk, but they were kind of still had enough for me to use my imagination on. You know what I mean? It was like, some of that other stuff just became boring. Like the Pistols, you can't take it away from them. They sound amazing. Or the Damned, brilliant records when they came out. But I, at the time we weren't thinking, oh, we've got to move on to the next level. It's just what we did. Like, all them influences were in there with me and Mack. Like, like the Velvet Underground, David Bowie, all the punk stuff, or some of the punk stuff that we liked, Talking Heads, Television, and then a lot of the 60s stuff as well, And with Mack, he really liked Leonard Cohen. He loved the lyrics of Leonard Cohen and that. So that was kind of a dark thing as well. So all these things go into you, and you don't know what's going to come out. You just you always still think, oh, that sounds a bit like Waiting for the Man or something, and you think that's good, But if it came out and it sounded a bit like, I don't know, bloody some pop thing, you think that's bad, and you would avoid it, So it's like things that you hate influence you as much as things that you like, because they steer you away.
Yeah.
They send you off down another little road.
Yeah.
If you start doing something and it's too cheesy, you think, oh, no, I'm not doing that. That's wrong. And, a lot of these things, they could be like massive hits, or you kind of like reject them, because they're too cheesy. A combination of notes can be, seen as a bit crap, but seen as brilliant. It's all about taste, isn't it? At the end of the day, and what your taste is. And my taste was more of the the darker side of things. Yeah, we weren't goth or anything. Like, you know, we sort of do get like Killing Moon and that gets like thrown in with the goth stuff, but it's not really goth. If anything, it's European.
Just the word itself, killing, does a lot of the work for you on that side.
Yeah, but it's like it's got a like, I think it's got a strange otherworldly sound that's something somewhere else, you know.
Right. And it's such a fine line between something that's catchy and something that's not. It's like I said, you know, there was, especially in the drum machine days, and I want to say, in, you know, how that led to those songs that ended up on your first couple records, you know, there was still that danceability there. You know, it's when you define pop music, right?
We always used to, like, when if we went to like a disco or whatever and they put one of our songs on, it always cleared the dance floor. You know, we like every time, like, oh no, we put like the Rescue on or something, and everyone would disappear.
I can dance to it. It's fine. I can dance to it. Is what I'm saying. I would love to go to a disco where that came on. I do want to quickly hit, because one of the favorite things hearing about this is when you all finally do have your first moments on stage. Up to this point, you still had not heard Ian Mack sing, and that is hilarious. A little bit mind-blowing that the trust was there.
At the time, it never seemed like such a big deal. It was like, yeah, you know, someone said he could sing, so that'll do. You know, it was a lot of it is like having the guts to do it. You know, and he's got the guts to do it. You know, I wouldn't have the guts to do it. Yeah. Like, it's all right standing there looking at my shoes, playing a guitar. But it's different when everyone's looking at you and you've got to just come out with words. So it's another thing.
Yeah. Well, thank God he sounded good.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Don't know what would have happened if that went the other way, you know? It's like, oh.
We would have probably still carried on.
Yeah.
You know, because we were like a team. We were like a gang. You become like a gang, and you're all kind of getting each other's back. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. And it was like that then, you know.
Did you did you talk any of this over with him as you're writing this book? And I only say that being that there's not a definitive version of your all story up to this point.
No, because it's my story. It's not his. You know, it's my story. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I know what I'm only putting in the stuff the way I saw it. Yeah, I don't want to put anyone else's view on it in there. They can do their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you know, just what the way you do it. I mean, again, it's sort of, I don't know, finally, I don't want to say cleared up. It just, you know, for the war, the 70s, just the way that it built into this glorious noise that you all put out. I mean, it finally sort of makes sense in that way. I'm only trying to throw you the compliment of how well you told that story, your story.
Yeah. I'm like, I get that compliment all the time. Like, it's dead well written and all that. Yeah. And I can't believe it, really, because it's just the way it just came out, you know, really. I did have an editor who would say stuff like, oh, that bit's a bit confusing. Can you change that a bit? Or, you know, like one time she said, what's the Luftwaffe? You know, so I had to put in German Air Force in brackets. And then I started, like, I was on Virgin Radio and they said, oh, the only thing criticism I got is all the mansplaining. Because, like, but a lot of that was like, because I had one eye on the fact that it was going to come out in America. Mm-hmm. And, like, I didn't know whether Americans would know all these things, you know, like little British kind of things. Right. So I had to sort of explain a bit of it.
I appreciated that, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know what the Luftwaffe was?
I'd never heard that word. In fact, it's up till this point, it's only been that word that I've read and I've never heard. So thank you.
Yeah. It's just, you know, like I say, you know, you weren't born that close to the war. So, you know.
Completely
different. You know, you didn't have them flying over your house, dropping bombs on your mum and dad.
Right. Thank goodness. No, it's so interesting though. It's just, you know, I'm going off on a little tangent, a little detour here, but you know, it is how, and I'm not saying anything new, by the way. growing up in Europe versus growing up in America because of what you all have dealt with versus what we've dealt with, and the way we hear things, the way we see things, and that being this ultimate divide of just the influences, how they arrive to us, because nobody has been over here dropping bombs like that. It's
no,
not like that.
No, not like that.
Right.
But yeah, it's weird. Like, the thing with America is it's so diverse, isn't it? It's just massive, and it's got all the different terrains and weathers and landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to go anywhere else, really.
And yet,
so I can understand why people don't bother coming over to Europe, because they've got enough over there to explore.
That's true, but I'm still looking for this whole pandemic to clear up so I can get back over there. Still, whatever there's an allure.
You got the cities, haven't you? Your Paris and all that sort of stuff, Copenhagen, wherever. You got interesting cities over here. Yeah. It was funny. Like, we did a thing called Poltergeist, me and Les, our bass player, a few years, like, it was about 10 years ago now. It just shows you how fast time flies. Like, and I did some posters, and one of them was like, it was like a warrior on a horse, and the horse had like a hood on, but it was like armor, really. That's what it was, and it was a Saracen warrior, and somebody put on my Twitter, "Oh, we don't like hoods like that in America," or something like this. And I went, "It's a Saracen warrior from 630 AD."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, what you want about? And just, I don't know, it did me head in that. It was like trying to sort of make out some sort of racist crap when it wasn't. It was just like a historical image,
Context is important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a hood. It was a like a a kind of like a thing to stop the sand getting down the back of your neck or whatever.
Right.
Anyway,
yeah, it's you talk about time passing and how quick things are gone. I was surprised when I was looking at not including the what was it, the last album with the stars, the moon, the ocean. I don't know if I'm getting those in the right order. Which, by the way, I loved. Somnambulist, great song, and all the stuff that you guys were doing on that. But I was so surprised how long it's been since the last Bunnyman album proper, because I was thinking like, oh, it's been probably like 4 years, and it's been what, like 7, 8 years, something like that.
God knows, I don't count.
I love what you all still do. I do. And again, I know I'm saying this a fan, and I'm just going to lean into the over complimenting here, because when do you have the chance? But on the Fountain, and just bands, when you're around for a long time, I don't think you ever get enough credits for the later catalog stuff and what you all doing. Rare has there been a time where I didn't absolutely love everything that you all put out, and just thank you for continuing to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there more? Are you going to do more? I mean, I assumed with the what was it, the Bmg deal and that last record that was just a lead up to something else. That's usually what those kind of deals are like re-record the old stuff and then give us a new one.
Yeah, I wasn't that keen, to tell you the truth. Like, I didn't like the idea of recording the old stuff, and there you go.
Yeah,
I don't see the point of it. Yeah, there's another record eventually, I think.
Just eventually. I'm a greedy fan, Will. That's all this is coming down to.
Ruined everything, hasn't it? COVID things have kind of ruined everything.
Yeah.
And it's it's hard to get together and do it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I get it. So in the meantime, I mean, is the book The Concentration, the follow-up?
No, we've got a tour coming up.
All right.
We're starting rehearsing on Wednesday.
Geez, that's soon. You ready?
Well, I haven't played. Last time we played was 2019. I played guitar and stuff, But I've not played any Bunnymen songs since 2019, so I'm gonna have to try and remember them all.
Well, as you said, it's not like you have to do them exactly the same way. We're still gonna.
It's sort of ingrained, a lot of it. You can't once you stick the guitar on, you just know where you're going.
Right.
Muscle memory. We've got a lot of rehearsals coming up, so should be all right.
Yeah. Again, I do love what you all do. Well, I enjoyed this book, Bunnyman, so much. I cannot wait for the sequel.
I know. Yeah.
To hear that. I need to
get my arse in gear on that. I've started it. Like I've done one chapter, and it's a bit when Peter Freitas does his first bit of drumming with us, and it wasn't really an audition. We didn't know what an audition was. It was just like, oh, we know a drummer, okay. That was it. And like when we had him drumming, we thought, yeah, that's great. It was only later on to realise how great.
Yeah.
Just
the amount of fortune that you all had. And you do talk about that in the book, just how it lined up within that first year. It's like, luckily your lead singer could sing. Luckily there was a press guy in the crowd. Luckily there was a label guy down the street. It's just incredible.
Yeah, there was probably Bill Drummond had little things going off in the background, but to start, we only did 10 gigs before we got signed. And that was to Sire Records, which was to me, it was like, the Ramones were on Sire and the Talking Heads. I just loved Sire Records anyway. But, then they used all the money up on the Undertones. So we got sort of moved to another Warner's label, because Sire was going through Warner's, I think. They're all kind of in it together, And that was like just another chance thing that happened, It's weird.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure if you spoke to Mack, he'd be going, "Oh no, it was all destined," and and all that sort of stuff, because he believes in all that sort of stuff. But I think things just happen sometimes through luck.
Yeah. What's it? When you hear people say to have a story, you've got to have resistance. You've got to have the villain. And it's interesting, it's not, there are hard moments in your book, especially as you're growing up and just your environments and asshole teachers and but it's interesting because this is a story that it works out. That the happiness.
It was just normal then. It wasn't like everyone had schools like that where the teachers would hit the kids with a rubber pipe. It's like normal behavior. It never seemed like you never felt like you were hard done by or whatever. You didn't think, oh, poor me. You just got on with it. You just, it wasn't like everyone's got it so easy now. But it was easy for us because we didn't know any different.
Well, I was reading some of Bobby's book last night, and I looked at my wife and I said, that Pink Floyd song is starting to make a whole lot more sense to me. I get where Waters was coming from a little bit more now.
Oh, right, yeah. They teach you, leave them kids alone and all that.
Right. Yeah. It's all right that it was normal for you. I'm going to say, honestly, I'm glad I didn't have that kind of experience. I got smacked a few times by some teachers back in the 80s, but luckily it wasn't with a rubber pipe. It's
well, we didn't really get it with the rubber pipe, but I used to just use it as like a threat and like bash it down on your desk if you were talking or whatever. It was more like an intimidation tool,
right?
But we did get like the cane and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The maddest thing about the cane is they do it on your hand. It's not on your arse, like like in the films. Like it's on your hand. Like I never had it. I was either too slippery to get caught, always a goody gumdrops, you know what I mean? So I never got up course. But people we know got the cane, and you get it on your hand, and it's like, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those bones are easy to break. That's what I was thinking. That's
Must have really hurt.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. I had the paddle on the ass, but that's again easy space to play with right there. That's
get your textbook back down your undies.
What an interesting spot to wrap this interview up right here. This is No, listen, to anyone watching, and there's so many interesting parts of this book, and you get so far into your life, and it just is such a good story, and really does do a service to the music that you all created, the story leading up to it. Again, well, I'm so looking forward to the sequel, and apparently maybe the entire trilogy too. Thank you for doing what you're doing, man.
Nice one, thanks. Enjoyed it.
Take care, and have a great tour.
Yeah, it should be good.